oh no, Uncle Jimmy is blurry, and they love Uncle Jimmy. They don't want Uncle Jimmy to be blurry. The wedding day is not happening for the sake of the photos. The wedding day is happening for the sake of the wedding. No, don't do that, you sinner. Hey everybody, I'm Emma Berman. I'm a wedding photographer, and today I'm gonna be telling you about 7 simple tricks that you can use to level up your wedding photography game. Trick number 1, 2 camera bodies. Hear me out, do it. I kid you not, I used to be a 1 camera body person. It was for a short time when I first started, mostly because I didn't have the finances available to have a 2nd camera body, but I would encourage anybody who is looking to be a wedding photographer to invest in a 2nd body. Even if it is different than the first and maybe a lot cheaper, not as high quality, always have a backup. Not only is it helpful because then you have one in case your first one fails for some reason, but it's also super helpful to be able to use 2 different types of lenses when you are shooting. Sometimes you're in a scenario where all of a sudden you quickly need a different focal length and you're like, I need another lens, my other lens. I don't have time right now to go swap it out because Auntie Sue is giving her surprise gift to the bride right now. Panic. So having 2 camera bodies is seriously so helpful because then you don't have to worry about swapping out your lenses. You can have 2 different lenses going on at the same time, and it's just a matter of swapping cameras. You can use something like a harness or a spider belt where you've got your cameras on your body too. You've got them with you at all times. So then it's just a matter of swap. Trick number 2 is to switch between drive modes. The 2 different drive modes that I switch between on a wedding day are high-speed continuous and low-speed continuous. There are times where you don't really need to be shooting frames this fast. If I'm taking family photos, for example, I'm not needing every single second of a moment captured. I mean, we have people posed. It is the time where you get to direct. Unlike a moment like a first look or the first time they kiss after they're announced wedded. And you want to make sure you don't miss a single moment of that because it could be very fleeting. It can happen really fast. Sometimes things happen and you're like, okay, that was 2 seconds and it's done. What just happened? I, in those times, have been very thankful that I've used high-speed continuous mode because then I'm not missing a single second. It's going, which is just exactly what you need for those moments that are fast-paced, which wedding days have so many fast-paced moments, and things that are not recreatable, or even if you recreate it, it's not the same as it happening the first time. I recommend switch between high speed and low speed continuous. It's super helpful for post-production when you go to cull through your photos. Nothing is worse than opening up your photos from a wedding day and seeing, 10,000 photos to go through or something crazy. And it's like, I was there for 8 hours. How is there that many photos? I think it'll save you so much hassle if you learn to switch between the 2 modes. Just make that something that you practice until it's just habitual. You just know when to switch between the 2 and it becomes second nature. You don't have to think about it too much. Make sure you know exactly how to do it so that you know how to do it fast, so that if you're in a moment where you're like, oh, I need high speed for this moment, this is gonna happen fast. Oh, wait, how do I do that again? Just make sure you familiarize yourself with it so that you're able to do it quickly. All right, trick number 3 is going to be controversial. Yay! This is my preference, and I know there are going to be a lot of people out there, photographers, who are probably like, no, don't do that, you sinner. Tip number 3 is to use auto ISO in moments where it's necessary. What I mean by necessary is, for example, say you're shooting a wedding, a ceremony, and part of the walk down the aisle is in sun and part of it is in shade, depending on where the couple is and where you've angled your camera and everything. I have had times where I will go to shoot the portion that's in the sunlight, and then as soon as they get into the shade, it's like, oh my goodness, the blacks are crushed. I mean, even if I'm shooting in RAW, if I take that photo into Lightroom afterward and try to fix it, it's gonna be so dark. Having control over your ISO is always going to be preferable, but again, it's all about what you need based on a situation, and sometimes you're in a situation with weddings, it happens all the time, where things are happening fast, and you don't want to end up with photos that are unusable. So using auto ISO can actually save your bacon in the long run. Tip number 4 is one that is probably very basic if you are somebody who's been shooting weddings for a while. If you are a beginner and you're just starting out in wedding photography, say, this is going to be hugely important for you. Shooting at a higher f-stop when you are shooting a group of people, family photos, wedding party, etc. Shoot at a higher f-stop so you are making sure that every person in the frame is in focus. Especially if you find yourself photographing a group that has several rows for some reason. Let's just say that you're shooting some people that are on bleachers and you've got staggered levels here going on. If you are shooting at, f2.8, the people in your front row might be in focus, but people in rows 2, 3, 4, they're gonna be blurry. I encourage you, shoot at a higher f-stop for bigger groups. It's always better safe than sorry. I know images look nicer and sharper, and there is a bit of this belief in people that, I gotta keep my f-stop as low as possible all the time. Don't do it. I did that at first too, and then I was very sad when I would go through family photos and be like, oh no, Uncle Jimmy is blurry, and they love Uncle Jimmy. They don't want Uncle Jimmy to be blurry. So shoot at a higher f-stop when there are bigger groups. Or if you have fast-paced movement, like let's say the couple's first dance is some crazy fast-paced swing dance or something, and they're moving around a lot and quick, I encourage people to shoot at a higher f-stop for that as well, like maybe 4 or higher, something like that, because then if, let's say, the couple is spread out quite a bit, you could have the bride in focus, but maybe the groom is out of focus because he's far enough away from her. But if I bump up my f-stop, I don't need to worry about that as much, because then even if she is in focus and he's not in focus, he's going to be a lot more in focus than he would be if I had it down at 1.4, 1.8, 2.8, whatever. So get comfortable using a higher f-stop at certain points of a wedding day because it will save your bacon, I promise. Tip number 5 is one that is specific to wedding photography or anything with couple portraits. Have a note on your phone that has a list of prompts and poses that you can use on a wedding day or during an engagement shoot, whatever it is, because I can guarantee you there will be at least one time, probably more than that, where your mind just goes blank, whether it's because you're tired or you're hungry or it's a stressful situation or you're pressed for time or you're just feeling the pressure. There are gonna be more times that you find your mind going blank and you're gonna feel panic. I love to have a backup plan for that. I've gotten to a point where I actually don't need to use the note very much anymore because I'm more comfortable with it because I've been doing it for a while now and because I've done it so much that it's just, I almost have the list memorized. But I encourage people, have a note on your phone, a list of prompts and poses that you can use so that when it's time to take some creative couple portraits, maybe at sunset, golden hour, whatever, you do not need to worry about your mind going blank. You have that list there, ready to use, ready to refer to. There's no stress. You're removing the risk of your mind going blank. It doesn't matter if it does because you're prepared for that. Number 6 is using foreground in your images. I've talked about this in a previous video, but using foreground is something I will probably never stop talking about because I have found it to be one of my favorite ways of leveling up my photos and just making them more interesting in general. There's not much to be said about this. It's pretty obvious what it is, but an example I could give you is during a ceremony, you're shooting the bride, she looks beautiful, and she is the only thing in the frame. That's fine. But if you want to take your photography to a more interesting level, maybe make it look more professional or even just more artistic, you want to get down a little bit so that you've got some of the crowd in the foreground, blurry, maybe in the bottom third, or maybe you even shoot through a couple of people so then they're framing the bride on either side and you've got that interesting blurry foreground. Nothing will level up your photography quite like using depth. Use foreground and framing even, but use foreground and watch how that can make your photos just way more elevated. Trick number 7, I'm calling it be a photography ninja. And what I mean by that is be as discreet as possible. Make sure you're not interrupting moments, you're not being noticed very much. You want to be as blended in with the background as possible. If you go through an entire wedding day and people hardly notice you and they're like, oh wow, you're here, aren't you? I didn't even see you over there. That's great. That means that people can have organic, real moments and they're not worrying about a camera in their face. They're not thinking about it. They're not suddenly being like awkward and the conversation turns really stilted because they're like, there's a camera right there. One way that you can enable yourself to be discreet is to have a lens that can zoom in close enough. Whether that's just shooting on an 85 prime or shooting on a 70-200, which is my personal favorite. I love it. I will love it till the day I die. It is a great way to ensure that you can capture moments without interrupting them. If you're somebody who shoots on a 35mm all day long, shame on you. Because if you really are intending to capture some sweet, intimate, emotional moments, you gotta have a lens that can get close enough without your body physically having to get so close to these people. Nothing is more distracting than a camera suddenly being right there in your face. The wedding day is not happening for the sake of the photos. The wedding day is happening for the sake of the wedding. So our job as a wedding photographer is not to make it a production, not to be a director even. There are times for that, family photos, you got to direct things, or maybe you're taking some detail photos. Yeah, you can kind of direct things, but in general, I think being a good wedding photographer is having that documentary kind of approach where you are just capturing candid moments, real authentic moments, and you're not making a spectacle of yourself. You're not standing in front of people a bunch. Not to say that you can't once in a while step in front of someone to grab a photo or whatever and then back off. There are times where that is important because maybe the only angle where you can actually see the groom's reaction is stepping in front of somebody for a second. You got to do what you got to do, but for the most part, we want to make sure that this day feels authentic and not like a production, and therefore have a long lens. Make sure you can zoom in and not have to physically get up close. If you're standing 2 feet away from the couple at the altar as they're exchanging vows, that is going to be so distracting for the guests and the family members. You're diminishing the experience. So be a photography ninja, blend in with your surroundings, be as unobtrusive as possible, and that will make for some really great wedding days, and people will be really thankful that you weren't a distraction. Okay, those are my 7 tips and tricks for elevating your wedding photography. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe for more photography content and check out the videos that are on our page already. And let us know down below what things would be helpful for us to cover next, what topics you would find helpful to learn more about. I'm Emma Berman, and this has been 7 simple tricks to level up your wedding photography game. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.